here today to talk about this Epiphone SG Standard 61 with the Maestro Vibrola. Now, if you've been watching the Gibson Experiment, the series where I explore a single gear category in extreme detail over an extended period of time, you already know why I decided to check out this guitar. But as a quick recap for those who haven't seen the prior episodes, I originally tried 3 Gibson guitars. My favorite was the Gibson version of this guitar with the Vibrola, but since I was afraid of the Vibrola, I chickened out and bought this SG Standard Walnut instead. And I've been testing this guitar for several months now. And since that time, everyone has been telling me in the comments that I should just go back and buy the Gibson Vibrola model because the tuning can be stable if you know how to work with it. And unfortunately, I can't afford to just go back and buy the Vibrola version of this guitar. But if you support me on Patreon, maybe we can make that happen in the future. And of course, this is not just a donation, you get a ton of lessons as well. But for today, we're going to just focus on this guitar. I think it's really good, but at the same time, it's not for me. But let me explain why. Let's start from the beginning. Like we always do, we're going to start from the headstock and work our way down to the end pin. Now, the first thing I noticed about this guitar was that the tuners were actually really good. And the reason that's a shock to me is because when I got the Gibson version of this guitar, it came with these Gibson branded deluxe tuners. And I really don't like how these tuners feel. Even right now without a string, as I'm twisting them, they just don't feel very smooth. They feel kind of cheap. By comparison, this Epiphone comes with Wilkinson deluxe tuners. And these don't feel cheap at all. They feel very high quality and even more high quality than the Gibson branded ones. So no need to change the tuners, and that's always great. Epiphones now also come with a GrafTech nut, just like their Gibson counterpart, which I love to see. And unfortunately, we have 3 screws on the truss rod cover. Not 1, not 2, but 3. This guitar comes with nickel frets, and I have to say, the fret ends are basically perfect, and the frets were also leveled really, really well from the factory. This is a really good fret job considering the price of this particular guitar. Now, the biggest issue, and this is an issue in air quotes because this is just an issue for me, it may not be an issue for you, but the biggest issue for me with this guitar is the neck profile and the way it feels. Now, yes, the neck does have a gloss finish, and generally speaking, I don't prefer a gloss finish, but that isn't necessarily the issue because you can get a bit of sandpaper, sand off that gloss. It'll take 5 to 10 minutes and the guitar will then play exactly like you want it to play. I have a pretty big issue with this neck profile. Epiphone labels it or advertises it as a slim tapered. And to be fair, that is exactly what it feels like. It feels like a shockingly thin D profile. And here's the thing. I'm not one of those guys who knows the history of Gibson guitars, who can tell you exactly which neck profile comes on what guitar historically, all of that stuff. That's not me. That's not what I do on this channel. I can tell you that when I play this neck, it feels very out of place on this guitar. The neck feels like it should be on an Ibanez type guitar or some other shredder type guitar. And then on top of that, I did a little bit of research after the fact, and I found that almost every single Epiphone guitar has this same slim neck profile. So clearly someone is loving this neck profile, otherwise I don't think they will continue to make it. But I have to say, for me personally, this is way too thin and way too flat. That being said, they also do use these modern frets like I already mentioned, and I prefer these modern frets to the vintage style Gibson frets. So it's really a mixed bag in terms of what I like and dislike about this neck. I advise you try one ahead of time before you purchase, and that's easy to do because you can find these in just about every large guitar store. Now, moving on to the body, I'm not someone who usually complains about the aesthetics of a guitar. In fact, there's a running joke that everyone thinks I like ugly guitars. I really don't like the way that this guitar looks. It's not the color. It's just the fact that there is this really strange veneer on the top that doesn't actually wrap around to the carve. So even if I don't zoom in during the edit, you can probably still see that we have this one color of wood here, one design, one grain pattern, and then we have this very obviously different pattern right here. And to me, that just looks really, really tacky and really cheap. Again, if I liked the neck, would that be a deal breaker for me? Probably not, but I feel like no one would have been upset if they just kept the same grain pattern and got rid of the veneer. I think that will look a bit better overall. The pickups are surprisingly good. They pretty much give you everything you would expect from a humbucker guitar, and just like their Gibson counterparts, they do clean up really well, and I have no complaints whatsoever about these pickups. So we're going to start with some super clean tones. Of course, when I'm doing my super clean stuff, I'm going through my Axe effects and using a Roland Jazz chorus type setting. Everything on 10 with the controls. Here's our bridge pickup. Bridge in middle. Neck. I really like the neck pickup in particular. It has a really nice, fat, warm sound. Now we're on my Marshall jump setting. I like the setting because it's a really good test of the cleanup for a particular guitar. So we're on the neck pickup, everything on full. Volume down to 8. A lot cleaner. Volume down to about 6. And there we go. Now we have essentially a clean tone. We'll do the same thing with the bridge. Bridge on 10. Bridge on 8. And that is already essentially perfect. That's a really nice clean tone from the bridge now. So I feel like these pickups are very versatile, and again, this is a pretty affordable guitar, so no complaints from me whatsoever with the sound of the pickups. If you appreciate the fact that I actually go through, read the comments, and make videos based on your requests, give this video a like and share it with someone who might be interested in an Epiphone 61 standard SG Maestro Vibrola. Yeah, that's the name of the guitar. And now, of course, we need to talk about the Vibrola. And here's the thing. I understand that this guitar costs less than half of the Gibson counterpart of this guitar. And so I don't expect the Vibrola to be exactly the same as the more expensive one. I'm not comparing it to that. I'm just telling you how this Vibrola feels compared to the one that I played and how it's holding tune. Now, the first thing I should say is that I honestly thought I was going to have to go out and buy a string butler in order to keep this working in tune. But I have to say, with my normal standard usage, this is holding tune decently well. It's not staying in tune perfectly, but it's definitely staying in tune enough that I could feel comfortable using it without any additional modifications. And to be completely honest, I'm really impressed because when you hear about the Vibrola, everyone talks about adding a string butler, locking tuners, roller bridges, different washers and all of that stuff. But I have to say, this is pretty good, all things considered. And just gentle use. Totally fine. A little bit more. And as you can see, that's staying in tune just fine. Of course, with this type of bridge, that's really the most you're going to want to do. If we take it to a further step and start to go a little bit crazy, it's probably going to go out of tune because it's not designed for that. So just very quickly. And even there, it's still decently in tune. Of course, the B string and the G string are not perfect, but you could still finish the song here just fine. And maybe if you wanted to add a string butler, you can get it a little bit better, but this is still pretty good. The one huge issue, and for me, again, this is another deal breaker, the one huge issue that I'm having with it is that the angle of the arm is not the same as the Gibson counterpart. And I don't know why they did that. When I was playing the Gibson one in store, the arm came out almost straight. And so if you're just holding the Vibrola and playing things and trying to use it, you can just kind of have it in between your pinky and ring finger. This Vibrola's arm angle seems to be made so that you can just grab it like this and move it this way. If you're someone who occasionally just goes back, grabs it and gives it a warble, I think it'll be fine. But if you're someone like me who likes to have the trem in that position to just use subtly as you play, I don't think that this arm angle is going to be conducive for that. And that's a really big disappointment because the Gibson one has the better arm angle, and I really have no idea why they would change that. Now, the other thing that I noticed about this Vibrola when compared to the Gibson version is that, number one, it's not nearly as smooth as when I tried the Gibson, so it takes a lot more force to manipulate it, and it just doesn't feel as smooth overall. And also, when you're using it, you can get this crinking sound in the back. Now, I don't know if there's a way to fix that. I don't know if over time they all get like that. I have no idea. I'm just saying when I tried the Gibson one in store, there was no crinking sound. And when I tried this one right away out of the box, it had that sound. So this is what it sounds like. Again, I'll say it one more time. That may be a simple fix. I have no idea. Gibson one didn't have that out of the box. The last thing I'll say about the guitar is that it balances really well. And so just to wrap things up, all things considered, we have a really good fret job. The neck profile is not for me personally, but you know, you may like the neck profile if you like a thin neck, a thin D profile. And the Vibrola isn't the right angle for me, but it does stay in tune decently well, and the pickups are fine. And with that said, I would say this guitar is actually pretty good for the price. By the way, I'm Andre Flood, and I'll talk to you soon.